So we are going to do the fourth of the eightfold path today, which is right speech. And I could do, as I said to a few people when I came in, I could do 8 weeks on this topic, and probably not even begin to exhaust it. So it's a big topic in a lot of circles. I think it's intriguing that psychology talks about communication, sociology talks about communication, education talks about communication, therapy, marital therapy is almost always about a breakdown in communication, and so this fourth step is evidently crucial, but it's part of 8 steps.
The third step.
Oh, it's the third.
Third and fourth. It's the third, and it has right speech.
Okay.
It's the third in the second section,
Okay.
which is ethics and morality.
Okay, got it.
And then it comes up again in the fourth section, which is what you're thinking of,
Okay, got it.
as one of the precepts. So,
Number 3.
got him straight.
Evidently
3 and
even
4.
more important. However, these
It
8
has its own section, which is big.
right.
Yeah.
The eightfold path is not sequential. It's circular.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these things play into each other and build on each other. I think as we go through these, you'll see that. I'm going to start with 2 stories of failure in communication by me. One is not totally, I won't take full blame. The second one I will. I grew up in a family that are talkers. I don't know if you can tell, but I have no problem talking. We were trained from early on that you fought for airtime. And my family, if you end up seeing this video, I love you all, but this is a really good topic for you all, especially when we get to the listening part of it. I had a friend named Jeff who was a tennis player with me in high school, and he came to a big Olsen family gathering and had dinner with my family. I believe it was fondue, which was even more chaotic than normal. And he came and he couldn't eat. So he's sitting next to me and had never been at one of these, and he couldn't eat. And so after a while, of course, I didn't even notice because I was too busy eating and talking and all those things. And so after a while, I'm like, what's happening? And he said, I can't eat like this. And I thought he was talking about fondue. He was talking about the idea that he couldn't eat with this much noise going on around him. Because there was maybe like 5, 6, 7 conversations all going and layered on top of each other. And so I asked him if maybe he wanted some other kind of food. He goes, it's not the food. and so I said, so he and I were having the conversation among the many conversations around the table, and there's probably about 16 people there. And I said, so how does your family eat? And he said, my father, it's all about the eating. And so we have to be quiet at the table. Mm. And I had met his father. This made total sense to me. And then if we want to talk to our parents afterwards, we go sit on the couch in the living room, the sofa in the living room, and then they will come and talk with us. I'm like, well, I can see why you're having a problem tonight, because despite being Norwegians, we're like Italians, kind of.
Right.
Southern Norway, evidently, we were from. I have no idea. But so I come from a series of talkers. Right speech, you would think, might be good topic for us, and half of it is. because we're educated and informed and relational. We like to eat.
Yeah.
And we're a big tight family, and so but the thing that we're not good at is listening. So right speech really has to have right listening as a big component of it. I went to get my master's degree in a counseling area, and got my first job afterwards, and had my first appointment. This is where I'll take the total blame. The counseling was a lady, and I can't remember her name, but I can remember the appointment. I was nervous. It was my first professional appointment. And so, as I do with all the appointments, at the end I said, "How was this for you?" And she said, "You're a real talkative counselor, aren't you?" And I knew that I had not counseled that day, because this was really to be about her. And indeed, it was about me. And in my nervousness, I reverted to the things that I felt stronger about. So I became kind of just a teacher in the session. She gave me a little nugget, and I would build a thesis around the little nugget that she gave me. So I've had to learn this skill of really listening, and it has not come naturally, and it's taken many, many years. I've been doing counseling for 22 years now, and I'd say that I'm a much better listener 22 years in, but the first few years were really rough. I could lead groups like this, present material, but I wasn't a communicator, I was just a talker. And so one of the skills of this is to have some kind of equanimity and balance between mindful communication, where our words are honest and yet filtered, and that our listening is multidimensional. What people are saying, what they're not saying, what that means to them, what that means to you. All of that listening, body language, there's so many aspects that we're going to spend more time on listening today than talking. How many of you in the room are better talkers than listeners? Okay, how many are better listeners than talkers? It's really interesting. It's almost always, it's everybody knows the answer
Which
to this.
for you, Mark?
Talker.
Me too.
And so the challenge is to get better at your strength, and then to build the weakness. And most people who do this are amazing communicators, not only at work but in the world, in their relationships. And surprisingly, all the studies say that their relationships last because they have this skill.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
As a psychologist?
Yeah.
Is it harder for a non-talker to become a talker, or to balance, get that equanimity on the spectrum of evenness, than for a talker to become a listener? My little bit of experience is the talkers, it's easier if you're a talker to become a listener. But it's very hard for people who are really silent types. They have a lot of trouble. You kind of have to pull this. You can tell a talker to shut up. Mm-hmm. Be quiet, I want to talk. But it's hard to pull out a person who's... Is that true for you non-talkers? I don't know.
Interestingly, the three non-talkers are sitting at the back.
And they're not talking.
I know, they're not answering.
I would just like to say it's so divine that you're talking about this today, because I had such a beautiful meditation yesterday where I was called to do a week
Oh, you were,
7 days.
say a little louder, honey. You
I
were
was
called.
called to do 7 days of silence, a vow of silence, which I think I'm going to start tomorrow.
All
So
right.
it's so beautiful that you're talking about this today.
Cool.
So, as a silent type, I'm going to be even more silent, but hopefully at the end of it, it'll help me.
Awesome.
To
You're
talk
doing
more.
a short form of Vipassana?
I guess so. I mean,
Good.
that's how it came to me.
Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Nice, that's great.
Okay. I'm sorry, but
Sorry.
I didn't get it. No, don't be sorry. That's great.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, because we work on this spectrum, so
I think
your family's talking. I'm interrupting you. Your family's talking and your guest is silent. And so the spectrum is, actually I'm in favor of your family. I think people who, don't eat. I think eating is for
I'm
talking.
going to send this to my family. I'm in favor of you too.
Okay. No, I think eating is a social occasion. So I like talking. But anyway, my question is, who has the more difficult time? Do you have any idea, or is it just
No,
sort of
I have no idea.
just?
I think
okay.
it's a challenge for both sets of people.
Okay.
I think if we're going to go with your spectrum idea,
Mhm.
I think the further you are on the extremes of the spectrum, the more difficult this is. I'm not sure that either
always
end
true.
is,
It's
but I
good.
think the ends
Mhm.
of the spectrum are really, really difficult to balance. It's just like anything.
Well,
if
I
you
think-
have some skills in if you have some skills in listening, you can build on them. If you have none, it's going to be a big hurdle just to even get started.
Well, I think that the listening skills are the important ones for living in the present moment,
They
more
are.
than the talking ones. The talking ones tend to take us out somewhere. So I think that's why, those of us who yap all the time.
Yeah. I want to go backwards for a minute, and then we'll go on to speech and listening. As we've done with all of these, this is part of the Four Noble Truths.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the Eightfold Path is the fourth noble truth. And so I think it's always good to review this, especially for those of us who have been, this is newer material for us. The first noble truth taught by the Buddha after his enlightenment is that life is, there's suffering in life. That it doesn't quite get to what we hope it would be, and therefore we suffer. The second one is that the causes of the suffering are that I need my glasses. I want to get all the words right. Is that we thirst, crave, and grasp for things that don't lead to the ease of suffering. We think they do, but they don't. They promise something, but don't really deliver. I'm thinking we can think of all kinds of things in our lives that we thought would give us happiness and contentment, and then we got them, and then, just another set of suffering. I have 100 stories about how that happened in my life, starting with a little red Fiat. all suffering with the red Fiat. And so the second noble truth is that we attach to things that don't satisfy. The third one is that if we can let go of those attachments through a practice of mindfulness and meditation, quietness, calm, centered, equanimous living, that practice of letting go of that can put an end to the need to have those external things satisfy us. They can be there, but they're not the source of our satisfaction. And then the fourth is these 8 right things: right understanding, right thoughts, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right meditation. And so that start leads us into the third on that of those 8, which is about right speech. And so I want to do a few things about the verbal part of speaking, and then a lot more on listening today. Uh, when we speak skillfully and productively, um, we are communicating an understanding of ourself, of our audience, and of the world. We adjust how we talk based on the audience. We adjust how we talk based on where we are internally at that moment. And we adjust our talk according to the space that the world is in. So it's very interesting that in this pandemic age, all 3 of those things are like 3 planets, mingling around each other. And therefore, how we talk to ourselves, how we talk to those that are important to us, and how we talk about and in the world are all affected by right speech. I worked in treatment, chemical health treatment, and the one word for speech that was highlighted over and over was honest. Well, it's really interesting that to give honest speech, we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest to others, and we have to have some kind of perception of our honest worldview. And all those are contained in the honesty piece. Working in chemical health treatment was difficult because addicts are game players. It's part of the lifestyle. It's part of how you maintain a drug or an alcohol heavy lifestyle. Is you play games, you manipulate, you maneuver, you tell portions of the truth, non-truths. We know this in the world now. All the funny truths that are coming in some of the controversial topics of the day. Mm-hmm. All the versions of the truth. If you're going to do right, honest speech, it's going to have to be authentic. You're going to have to be authentic. Your relationships are going to have to be authentic. Your view is going to have to be balanced in the world. And so just to speak right has many, many complex layers and components to it. But if this is a skill for you, it is also a skill to adjust and to get better at. If it's not a skill for you or not a strength, then it's something to get over some of the initial hurdles to get into the realm of it. So if you're by nature a fast talker, if you're going to be a skillful talker, you learn how to vary the speed of what you do based on the audience. And we could go through all kinds of things, but honest talking is really about knowing your truth and telling your truth, but not manipulating the situation so that there's power and control involved in it. This is one of the problems with speech, is it's often controlling. And really the only thing that I think in a balanced life that you have the chance at working at is self-control. And that's tough enough, so why would we need to control everything else? But we do. I do. And so when you do that, you can adjust your speech, how you talk to yourself, how you talk to others, how you talk in the world. And there's the Pali Canon has 4 parts to right speech. Speak the truth and nothing but the truth is the substance of the idea, the nature of speaking. Second, the goal of truth is to lead people towards harmony and goodwill. Completely the opposite of how people are using speech these days, towards division, towards control, towards hierarchies, towards putting someone else down. And so the goal of good speech, according to the canon, is let it lead you towards harmony and goodwill with yourself, with others in the world. Now, to be honest, and to do that is a challenge, a real challenge, because we'd like to play forms of the truth to be approving, having somebody else approve us. And so it takes a lot of skills in your communication toolbox, your speech toolbox, to be able to present the honest truth in a way that other people will be able to receive.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the filtering comes in.
Diplomacy, too.
It is. It's an enormous skill where you are not only talking, but you're reading the situation. If someone wants you to stop talking and everything about them is telling you that, why would we keep talking? Makes no sense at all. And so to speak is to also observe. Mm-hmm. Buddhism is a lot about observing. Mm-hmm. The flavor, the third of these four, is to be polite and kind. Use communication to release anger and but to ease tensions. So to be polite and kind. Polite is kind of out. It's not vogue.
No, but respect is never out of vogue.
No,
and
right?
respect is expressed in politeness.
It is.
So, I mean, that's the whole point of good manners, is to be respectful to the other person.
Yes.
So even though the word's not in vogue, I think the honesty
we know,
of it is.
internally we know this is all true.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that some of our examples in the world are untrue and are leading us away from this goal.
Right.
One of the things that I've been shown is if when I speak, it's to be heard, not that somebody has to hear me, rather than to appreciate that the person who is listening to me actually has the right of way. They're the ones in control of the conversation. Mm-hmm. When I'm sharing something, it won't matter if I can't convey it in a way that they understand it. It's more important what they hear than what I say. Mm-hmm. And so I hand the conversation over to them. And in so doing, when I hand the conversation over to them, hopefully my words will convey what it is that I was trying to share.
Mm-hmm. Excellent insight about that.
You want to say that again?
Hope so.
I'm serious. I'm
Made sense the first time.
I'm trying to really absorb what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure that I'm on exactly the same.
So we'll
Give it to us again.
the essence of the communication is that I hand the conversation over to the listener. And when I'm conveying something, I'm listening to how they hear the conversation. I hand it over to them. Things like, not so much did that make sense to you? Could you repeat that back so that I know that I've conveyed what it was that I was trying to say? Mm-hmm. I notice the reactions, how they're responding to what I'm saying. And in essence, I hope to be speaking in a way that they understand. And if there is any discordant or disharmonic or something that breaks the conversation in any way, I realize that I'm not conveying the message well. And rather than put more energy and force into it, try to get them to grasp or understand something, I shift and say something to the effect of, how could I say this that would make sense to you? Mm-hmm. Then I let go of my feeling about their response, because any way that they're going to respond or share it back to me is going to be them processing what I've said in a way that makes sense to them. And it's my job to become the active listener at that point. And does it match what I was trying to convey?
Absolutely perfect description of communication with animals.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
trained horses, and training horses is communication. And it's, you've said it so beautifully. I wish you would put it in writing, because it works for me so much better in communicating with the animals than it does with people. So there apparently is, I've got a disconnect there. But you just said that perfectly, because what they hear and give back to you, tells you whether it's.
I want to give an illustration of what you see if this is accurate. Communication often is viewed as the passing of a baton. You've been to a track meet where there's a relay and people hold the baton and they run and they pass it to the next person. What I'm hearing you say, interestingly, a lot of communication people say, you hold the baton when you talk, and when you're done, you hand the baton to the other person. What I'm hearing a little different in how you said it is you are not just holding the baton, you are sharing the baton as you talk.
As you talk.
Now that's a very balanced idea. It's not like my turn, your turn. It's always our turn.
Our turn.
Is that
Absolutely
accurate?
As I pass the baton to you, and I feel your hand take the baton, I know whether you've got it or not.
Correct.
And when you've got it, I let go. And if I force it or you may not have it, or if I let go too soon, it drops and falls.
Right.
So it is that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Good. Well, there's something that I didn't plan, but this is good stuff.
It's really interesting, as I said. I know exactly what he's talking about, but I never really put it in the human realm.
I want to give this fourth one. There's so many sides to this.
Okay.
To talk well is to communicate with intention. So it has to do with inner and outer focus. It has to do with a much narrower path. Many times we speak so broadly that it just splatters out there and those things. But good communication is about intention. That's why so many people have so many skills in business about communication. Because there's a tangible reward or punishment at the end of you doing this. And that is, if you do this in business and you do it well, you keep the job and you make more money. These are all tangible things. And if we don't, then you lose status, lose jobs, lose money, and those things. So it's tangible things. So we know we have to do this well. And we know when we step over the line, when we tell our boss that they are blah, 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 in an unthoughtful way, we know what the result could be. And that is the boss will say, have a good life. But it won't be here. And so what's interesting is in our interpersonal relationships, for example, families, we don't think there are consequences to bad behavior, bad words, bad listening. And there are enormous ones. They're not quite as tangible, but they're messy. That's why family systems are so messy, is because the communication has broken down. It's ships passing in the night, or ships banging against each other day in, day out, or a combination of banging together and then passing in the night, and those things. Communication is indeed about that shared baton. It's like a house. Communication is the foundation of the house, and then you build on top of it. with the rest of it. The rest is lovely if you have this skill. But communication is about walking in the front door of the house after you've knocked on the door, if it's not your house. When you've knocked on the door, someone has answered, opened the door, and allowed you in. Now you're in the house. Good communication is that skillful and that respectful. Are there other ways in the house? Yes. You can go in the back door. In counseling circles, they call this the passive-aggressive way. You go in the back door of the house and you're in. Now you're ready to create a mess, and you've already created a mess by going in the back door.
Mm-hmm.
You can also go in the basement window, sneak in some way, manipulative way, and sometimes get your way, but you've created another mess. Or you can just go up to that front door and you can kick it in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in. But again, you've created a disaster in the house. And so that whole idea of us having manners and being respectful and skillful and polite in our wanting to have entrance into somebody else's house. Not only that we are in our own house, but we want to share that house with someone else. That's communication. If we see that their door is locked and there's a peephole and they're not even looking through the peephole, evidently not time to talk. It's up to them. It's up to the listener at that point. Or if they put the chain on the door and let you talk through the chain, the door only opened this far, but they're not going to let you in. Well, you better get to the point right away, because they're not going to give you much time. They don't trust you. So trust has a big deal to do with this kind of communication. So in what ways are you challenged by any of these things as you listen? I thought we could dialogue about this and then we'll go on to listening. In what ways are, as you listen to the skill and the toolbox of correct speaking, in what ways are you challenged?
Being aware of which avenue you're taking.
Being aware of what, huh?
Of which route you are taking, like which route one is taking to communicate.
Okay.
Because I think when there is an array of skill sets that have been trained, however, whether it was for business, for communication, for therapy, that sometimes you know the easier way and you know the harder way, and it's that awareness in our communication that can be hard. You don't know the passive-aggressive sometimes until you've already started it. And it's kind of like that reverse, or, just I think that awareness of what avenue, what intention we have for that communication is biggest challenge for me.
Okay.
As a talker, it's very easy to talk, it's easy to manipulate, it's easy to get you happy, it's easy to make you sad, but which way am I taking?
Mm-hmm. And do you want to know there's 100 paths that if you get really skillful, my family will enjoy this. I had an uncle who was a big swearer. He could put the GD combo together in any sentence, and he could string a bunch of things in one sentence that was about 3-4 words that you weren't supposed to say. And then he would go to church and he would talk like a regular person. You're just like, how did he do that? He knew the avenue. He knew now he was in that avenue and he needed to filter. Now the rest of his life he didn't. He worked in the military, so he didn't have to much filter. And then in his family life and stuff, he just said whatever he wanted to say. But I was always so amazed when I went to church with them. He did find a different avenue, so he had quite a good skill set. That was that, but that he knew what was appropriate and what was correct.
Don't you think we all do, to a degree?
Yes.
We modify our speech as well as our behavior according to who we're with.
Yes. We do.
I think that can be one of the challenges is finding the right filters and paths with usually people you're around a lot. So your partner
Right.
or your friends is if you're not from the same type of pattern,
Yeah.
to find a way that you can meet
Yes.
each other.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. To be on the same path
Yeah,
together.
because if you get off a little bit, that's not fun.
And Lisa, don't you think sometimes that means that you have to join their path, and hopefully sometime they might join your path. And
Depends
that-
on the path.
Uh-huh.
We take cues from each other. That's which I think is what you're talking about to a degree. You kind
Well,
of
if
get a
someone shows all the
cue.
time, you're not going to join them on that. Or
Yeah, you,
they,
you kind of know who you're with. And,
It's-
finding a middle ground.
It is, and to stay honest and mindful. It's a really, all these subtleties of this are more than subtleties, they're substantive.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right about what it takes. And to not give ourselves away. Here's another challenge for a lot of people, is that they'll adjust so that they're like 17 different people.
Mhm.
Then they're just a chameleon. Then they're just like they.
Yeah.
Well,
fitting in.
so that's a challenge. They don't really know themselves. They just know how they have to be in all the different settings and those things. Any other challenges?
Not to cancel clear, not to rephrase. To listen without talking over them in your head.
Yes.
We're going to get to this.
Oh,
one.
sorry. Okay.
No, we're going to get to
Yeah.
the listening one, which I hope to spend more time, but of course, we're rambling on the talking now.
Surprisingly.
What a surprise.
Well, we have lots of time.
Okay.
Right. We've got
So then quickly,
this week and next week and the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I have a whole set of exercises that we could do. It's
Well,
actually a game
I
that we could
haven't
do
told you
sometime
yet,
in
but
the
I'm going to
future.
ask you to take my class next week.
Well, then we'll do the game
so
next
you can
week.
do all that next week because I haven't told you. They gave me a doctor's appointment for
Okay.
Thursday at 11, and I took it
Got it.
because I didn't know what day we were doing things.
Okay.
sorry if I can,
So you can make this a twofer.
It would be good. I'm ready.
That's good.
to one of the things, and I know you're going there now that I hear what you're saying, now that I'm listening. But one of the things that I found that has always been interesting for me, especially in communicating, especially with the 8 points that you're bringing up, is cultivating all of them into my word. So am I in that right living? Am I in that right mind? Am I in that right, in all 8? And
The
then
right
when I-
understanding. Yeah.
Exactly, and then the words that come out will reveal that truth,
Yes.
and then that truth is easier to hear. Sorry if I
Mm.
got to the end there.
Do you know what one of the things about the beauty, and I said this at the beginning of that this eightfold path is circular, is that everything like feeds each other. Yeah, they're all. Here's the church. Here's the steeple. That whole deal. This is all intermingled. And people do this often. I know in grief counseling, people are like, "Oh, I got through the denial stage." Well, no, you didn't. You did work denial for a while, and it'll come back.
So you and I were talking about
It will. This is all circular. I think the more you start to understand truths in life, the more you realize they're not linear. They're circular, which is a very Eastern idea, not a Western idea. Everything's built on a time continuum in the West. And so that's why sometimes this material feels so foreign to us. So much of the substance of our background is not prepared to hear this. But everything will feed each other. And so if you work on communication, your focus will be better. You work on your understanding, your intentions will be better. All of these things. But I do think that working on communication and adjusting it is not only important, but possible.
Oh, yeah.
Many people are like, this is who I am.
Yeah, no.
Accept me for who I am.
Accept me for who I am. And the evolution of us is the important part. Is that we refine ourselves over time. So let's go to the listening part. Any other things about talking you wanted to talk about, though? No?
I'll put it into listening.
Okay. In the heart of the Buddha's teaching, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen teacher, said, "Deep listening is the foundation of right speech. If we cannot listen mindfully, we cannot practice right speech. No matter what we say, it will not be mindful, because we will be speaking only of our own ideas and not in response to the other person." So part of the idea of listening is the willingness to receive the influence of someone else. To receive it does not mean to agree. But to receive it does mean to absorb it. So one of the key words in communication toolboxes is the word empathy. Empathy is not the same as sympathy. Sympathy is staying in your own place and feeling something for somebody else. Empathy is losing your place and joining them. This is especially difficult with people that we're completely at odds with in personality or in policy or in mindset and those things. And yet, the beauty of it is great. Both Obama and Lincoln, a Democrat and a Republican, wanted on their cabinets people of differing opinions, so that the communication could be rich and influenced and find the middle way, the answers in negotiating and compromise. Also dirty words these days.
Yeah.
But a really important key in pretty much everything we do. So to listen is to be willing to receive the influence of someone else. We might agree with them. We might like it. We might not like it. And yet we joined them for that moment, rather than asking them to just join us. Now we have to know. We have to be. It takes a lot of strength within yourself to be willing to give yourself away to sit in someone else's shoes. So that's where you do the strong work of making sure that you have built the balance within yourself, so that you have the ability to sit in somebody else's shoes. If someone else is sad, you understand their sadness. You join them in their sadness to the best of your ability. If someone is happy and you're going to be empathetic, you join them in their happiness. You're not jealous of their happiness if you're not happy.
Sympathetic
You're just
joy.
happy that they're happy.
Yeah.
Which the word empathy is such an important piece of all of this. And so to be willing to receive the influence of the others. I have 6 things that are awesome that I researched this week about listening. And I want us to do one by one. These are all brand new for me. I read them to Ruthie on the phone last night, and she even thought they were good.
Do we have to take a break to cool off the...
We're good.
We're okay.
You give me a signal if you
Because we
need to.
really want this on film.
So listening, here's 6 things, all from Buddhist websites. Hi, Colleen. Listening is one of the ordinary daily activities that can serve as a powerful vehicle for cultivating mindfulness, insight, and freedom. Dharma practice is to develop the ability to see clearly Listening well is the way to see clearly. Through listening, we can better appreciate what others are saying, and we can also gain in our own self-understanding. It's a real basic one, but a good start. So imagine yourself, here's the second one. Imagine yourself standing in front of a great wall stretching to the right and equal distance to the left. In the middle is a closed door. You open the door and step through. On the other side of the wall is a vast sky and a great panorama of mountains and valleys receding towards a distant horizon. This looks like my morning in the mountains. From this view, you appreciate the great vastness and spaciousness of the world. Then you turn around and step back through the door to the other side of the wall. Standing on the other side, you see there is a vista of vast ocean sprinkled with beautiful islands. Sunrise, sunset on either side of the things. Perfect in Costa Rica. In fact, on the other side of the door, it is equally wide, and it's a large world to be explored and studied, with the vast ocean sprinkled with beautiful islands. Listening can be understood as the door between the two worlds. The world outside of yourself and the world inside of yourself. To practice mindful listening is to reside in the doorway between these two worlds, so you can be attentive and wise in both. Isn't that a great image of standing in the doorway and knowing listening is indeed about standing in the doorway and seeing where someone else is, as well as seeing where you are because you're listening to them. You like that one? I really, it's so pictorial, which is always really good for me.
That's the feel where we meet.
Yeah, it is. It's
That's the feel where we meet.
Mindful listening requires a willingness to put aside, at least temporarily, the agendas, preferences, opinions, and judgments that interfere with being able to listen well. This is that sentence is about empathy, where you leave your worldview and you join somebody else's. At the same time, it can involve actively noticing the internal impact and the response to what you've heard. So to set aside is to step back. This is what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That this collaboration. This is not really about me.
Mm-hmm.
This is about the collaboration of us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a beautiful illustration.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Mark
Yeah.
was talking about this on the way over here, about the physical feeling that comes, right, Mark?
Absolutely. The sensation, you were talking about the baton and feeling that person when they receive the baton and knowing that they actually have it. And when we're communicating, if I'm talking to you, which I am, but if I'm communicating with you, as I'm offering the words, I'm also sensitive to how, I'm not hypersensitive, but I am sensitive to how you're receiving and responding.
Mm-hmm.
And as I feel that you are in agreement, not with what I'm saying, but that you're able to hear what I'm saying, at a certain point, I am going to ebb in the way that I'm sharing, and the energy passes over to you, at which you point say something to, in eloquence, it would be, I heard what you say, Mark. I said, Mark, this is what I've heard, and this is how I see it. But in essence, when we're communicating, it doesn't always work out that way. It just sort of comes out as, well, I think this.
Right.
But slow that whole point down and feel every word as it's shared.
Yes. One of the skills that Mark is talking about that's real tangible step that's underutilized in communication is repeating back to someone what you heard them say.
That's the basis of Marshall Rosenberg's course in nonviolent communication, which is used by all kinds of diplomatic training, which is that whenever anyone is talking to you, you listen and then say, "Did I hear you correctly?"
Mm-hmm.
Or, is this, did I understand you? This, and repeat it back, and that way you are sure you're on the same page.
Yeah. And so there's actually 4 steps with 2 people talking to each other that are an important piece, and we could spend a whole hour and a half on this, and I have
It's
before.
a course. It's actually
One person, I'm going to do this, I don't know if I can do it for the camera because now I'm dyslexic, now I'm doing this backwards, but the first person talks, the listener says back to them what they are hearing them say. They have completed a circle. They've said, they repeat back what they've said. It's not about the listener in this circle. And then it's the listener's turn, and the listener speaks now, and the other one says back what they heard them saying. Now they've come to a crucial word that is communication and Buddhism, understanding. They've come to an understanding of where each of the 2 circles are.
You can do this with yourself, by the way, when you do intensive meditation.
How do you do that?
Well, are you being honest with yourself? Did I really mean, is it really true what my opinion was that I just expressed to myself? Is the feeling that I have really genuine?
Mm-hmm.
And you talk to whatever within yourself. It goes back to the very first thing, which was honesty.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't be honest with yourself, because there's nobody there but you, so you might as well be honest. And many times we lie to ourselves. And if we happen to be habitual liars to ourselves, maybe about just one thing, maybe about many things, we have to start this circle or this loop of saying, there you go again. You're telling yourself this fairy tale. So this is all in your head. But it's the same idea.
Well, when you get, I have example with schizophrenics. Schizophrenics start to not believe the voices that they're hearing.
Yeah.
They're like, yep, that's not my voice.
Yeah.
And so part of the understanding of schizophrenia, besides the importance of medication in it, is that you start to understand those are not your voices.
Mm-hmm.
And so for each of us, there's a little bit of schizophrenia in us.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand what is our voice and what are not our voices. What is somebody else's voice that we are presenting here, or is it a false voice of ours? Are we mistaken? Is it about something else? Mm-hmm. That's why when people are angry, in relationships or something, it's really important. It's almost always not about what it's about. Mm-hmm. That you're angry that the person put the toilet paper on the wrong way.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
it's not about the toilet paper.
It's not about the meal.
It's about something else that either happened that day or in this relationship over time that has led you to that. And so you have to get to the honest truth, and we're game players with ourselves.
Yeah.
Well,
you have that inner dialogue that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And the inner dialogue, let's say you're an addict.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's say you're addicted to Twinkies. And I want a Twinkie. And you can say, well, do I really... You can go into a whole inner dialogue standing in the middle of being Emmy. Mm-hmm. As to whether you should go down the Twinkie aisle or not, and am I telling myself the truth? Do I really need this? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So, but yeah, your inner dialogue has to be honest.
Mine's kettle chips, by the way, not Twinkies.
By the way, I don't have. It's just chocolate of any form for me. But anyway.
So I just most times don't go down the chip aisle unless I want to lie to myself. Then I go down the chip aisle.
Yeah. But we make excuses for other people And if you have people you love who are addicts, you have to have a lot of internal dialogue as to, am I being enabling? Should I do this differently? You know, you have to really examine your actions in response to their addiction.
Yep. It's the sharing of the baton.
Yeah, and we're not very good at it for the most part.
There's another thing that ends up happening in spiritual context as people start developing their own inner spirituality, and that is that they go into the bliss state of something you know well, Ruthie.
You know, I love it. Yeah.
But they go into the bliss state and then they sense they're hearing something and they're sensing something and they feel that this is an absolute truth and it's an undeniable truth. And in the initial stages it may very well be true. But as they go further into it, they give over to that voice that's talking, and it might be mind. And the mind is very, very good at mimicking the initial essence of spirit. But it doesn't have the sustainability or the durability,
That's right.
or and certainly it doesn't lack urgency. And so, again, when we sit quietly in that truth and just say, is this absolutely truth, which what you were saying?
Mm-hmm.
I want to end with the one about quietness in listening, because you led me right into it, and that's exactly where I wanted to go anyway. It's the last one.
I thought there were 6.
There are 6. I'm skipping 4 and 5 because we don't have time.
Okay.
A famous story from Ramayana, an epic poem in the Hindu tradition. The story tells of Rama walking in the forest with some companions. When Rama starts hearing the faint whisper of a voice, he asks his companions if they can hear it. They say no. Rama begins to walk toward the whisper. As he gets closer, he recognizes that it is his name being spoken, Rama, Rama. As the voice becomes louder, his friends still say they can't hear it. Finally, Rama comes to a large boulder from which the sound comes. He then places his 2 hands gently on the boulder. At this point, the rock breaks open, and inside is a person who has been stuck in the rock through a magic spell. By listening to the whispers, he was able to discover what was locked up and then released it. Here's how it applies to listening. In this way, to listen mindfully is to give care in order to hear the faint whispers inside others and ourselves, and to discover the significant thoughts, feelings, and desires that may be shy or overlooked. Once discovered, the quiet whispers then have the opportunity to be heard. So listening is about being quiet and listening for what's really there.
And when we meditate in stillness and silence, you can hear what in our Christian faith is called the still small voice of God. And it's just in Buddhism, it's the still small voice of your own true nature. And you can't get to it in the midst of a lot of noise. It's when you're silent and still.
So that is for that. You have to listen to the quiet voice within you, but you also, in your listening to others, have to listen for that quiet voice, because in that is the real depth. Not just the words, not just the superficial content, but the real thing. And that's why this is it's a complex, beautiful diamond with many, many sides. And the more we cut into that diamond, the more beautiful it shines.
Wow. Good talk.
I missed the one that was another favorite. Can I do one more?
Oh, absolutely. How
Okay.
are we doing on time?
I'm seeing it. Yeah, it's on my I have my computer out, so I know exactly what time it
Are
is.
we good?
No.
No? Okay, we can.
We're on 1 hour.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. We'll cut the minutes.
You know you are listening mindfully when you continue to listen to someone after they've stopped speaking.
Wow. Say that again.
You know you have listened mindfully when you continue to listen after someone has stopped speaking. Listen to the silence, or let the receptivity with which you listened become an additional occasion to notice what is happening within yourself or the other person. Such a pause, even a 2-second pause, gives you time to digest what is being said. It also gives you time to discover what you might want to say before you actually say it.
Jeff, I was thinking earlier about how we are often crafting our response while the person is still talking. So
Yes.
we ultimately stop listening to think about what we're going to say next, and then we may even jump in too soon.
Mm-hmm. There's evidently some magic in the silence between the two sets of words. Rarely done, though. So actually, you know, that first sentence is the beautiful one that you had me read over. You know you are listening when you continue to listen after someone has stopped speaking. There's a challenge for all of us.
Oh, yeah.
Even the 2-second pause. Somehow that's where the magic is. When the noise stops is when the magic starts.
But further to that, and something that I'm looking forward to finding out during my 7-day vow of silence is when I don't respond, will it make that other person think about what they have said or what they are going to say? And
Depends
that's
on them.
a good or bad thing. It's, you know, I'm intrigued to find out if that silence will be beneficial on both sides, to the contributor and the listener.
Sure. The idea of Sabbath in many religions, not just the Christian and Jewish religions, but the idea of Sabbath is that there's a day of rest and quiet between the 6 days of noise. And that somehow helps you to find what the 6 days of noise are about. And so that's exactly, you know, you're going into what in religious circles would be like a Sabbath for you. Also, I'm going to do this in relationship work, is that many people, I did divorce education, and many people come to the divorce class with their new boyfriend or girlfriend. They're not even fully divorced yet, and the next person has taken their place beside them in their loneliness, in their in the poverty of those experiences. They just continue to live in the noise and the noise and the same noise and the same noise and the same noise over and over, because the silence is deafening. But they will continue to live in the same noise till they find the Sabbath between things. If it's also in books, you read a chapter in a book, and the pause between the chapters is where the next chapter starts to make sense. In an orchestra concert, no applause in between the sections of a symphony. You just sit there and think about what happened, and it prepares you for what happens next. That's the whole idea. It's in the quiet and stillness and the balance of that the magic happens. That's why the pandemic maybe has some magic to it. Hugely.
What a gift in that regard.
There's quite a few gifts, and there's a lot of tragedy too.
Yes. So anyway,
All
we'll
right.
do again
That
next
was
week.
wonderful.
Okay.
Do again, because as I say, I didn't know whether we were doing. I thought we were going to go back to Fridays, and this is through.
I'm following the
Or not
guidelines.
as
My
a-
license won't allow
I
me to
have a-
drive on Fridays.
I don't think that I can. Yeah.
Even
Uh,
though people said you can switch license plates. Oops, we're not being recorded now, right?
Magic marker.
Well, I'll make the metta a little different than usual since we're running on pastime and everybody needs to do things. But I do want to say last week I commented that my problems, one of them was patience, along with the fact that I cussed. The other problem I had was patience. And that takes the form, for me, and it's one we didn't talk about, which is both listening, I think it's common, listening and speaking, which is that if somebody is really slow, and I get the point, I tend to jump in and finish the sentence. And that's a very impolite thing to do. But my kids used to drag things out, particularly, like, I'm like, so.
Because they knew it would
I
get
would
you.
get it, yeah, well. I told you about, this is a personal story. One of my daughters, my kids are now full-blown adults. One is 60 years old. One of my daughters said, well, her older sister had given her this advice, which is if you want to do something that you know mother isn't going to let you do, make all the arrangements and have the person that's picking you up be sitting in the driveway. And then tell her, bye Mom, I'm headed off to such and such. And she's going to say, what are you talking about? Well, I told you 2 or 3 weeks ago. She said, you'll confuse her. And she'll let you go. I said, I didn't know you guys were so devious.
It's clever.
But you'll get her confused because she'll be like, did I tell her she could do that? There. Anyway, loving kindness gets us a long way. So everybody take a few deep breaths. Set aside our talkative or non-talkative family and friends. Breathing in, I relax. Breathing out, I let go. Or in Sanskrit words, breathing in, I calm my mind. Breathing out, I calm my body. And enjoy silence. I thought the silence this morning when Mark was doing his talk, listening to the birds, which is wonderful. Probably everybody knows them. We go into our stillness and go into our silence, and this is very, very brief. It's a very brief, you can say it any time, and it covers a lot of the eightfold path and a lot of what the Buddha teaches. And it goes this way. May I have the wisdom, the courage, the patience, and the sense of humor to face life's inevitable difficulties. Wisdom, courage, patience, and a sense of humor, all of these are components of loving kindness. So please everybody, that was a wonderful talk. Go in peace, go making peace, living gently, loving mightily, and bowing to mysteries. Benson, how about giving us a final ding? Thank you very much.